So folks, we're just leaving the draw on the screen for a few moments. We're just waiting for both players to arrive. In fact, Scott is now in the arena, eager and ready to go. Mark Boyle probably just stretching his legs and taking a breath of fresh air for a moment. He's literally just come off the table after beating Shane Thompson. So he's probably just freshening himself up, and he will be in the arena in just a couple of minutes. But that is the game that we have for you. Scott Gillespie versus Mark Boyle. All the other games are getting underway. All of them currently 0-0. But they are all out in the arena. All the players and the games are getting underway. Over on table 11, Ronan McCarthy versus Craig Marsh. The stream table 4 is Alex Bailey versus Carl O'Donoghue, and the stream table 3 is Sean Chipperfield versus Carl Boyce. So what a little selection we have for you there. Choose the game you want to watch. In fact, why not get yourself a couple of devices, a laptop, an iPad, and maybe get your phone out too and watch 2 or 3 of the games. We, on the main arena, will be focused on Scott Gillespie against Mark Boyle. The two Scotsmen, early scores coming in. Rob Warren's taking the first frame from Rob Chilton, and Declan Brennan is 1-0 up against Jamie Burnett. So, as I say, we just wait for the players. We're pretty much ready to go, and we will be back with the action as soon as the players are here.
Lag when ready. 3, 2, 1, lag. Scott wins the lag. Would you like to break?
So the players have lagged. Scott Gillespie wins the lag. And you join us for the final 16 on Saturday evening. This is the Supreme Pool Series Event 2. Sorry, Event 1, what am I saying? The Liberty Games Open.
First frame, Scott Gillespie to break.
What a game this is, or what a game it purports to be. Scott Gillespie, one of the best players, if not the best player, over the last 12 months. And he's just going from strength to strength, winning event after event. Where's it going to end for him? He's now the new ambassador for Supreme. That's a great deal for him. There he is, Goobsy, as he's affectionately known, his opponent. You see the glove coming in the shot, and the very recognisable frame of Mark Boyle, two Scotsmen who will know each other very well. In fact, they played each other only last weekend in the IPA event, in which Scott won. I'm joined on commentary by Gareth Potts. How are you?
Better now you're not calling me Gareth Hibbett, so yeah, I'm okay.
Good. You enjoyed that one, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
It's an easy mistake to make. What about this game?
Yeah, I was just about to say, rightly so, this is the tie of the round, and see, these guys have both got big followings in Scotland, and these guys are two of the very best players in the world at the minute. Contrasting styles.
Yeah. Mark, much more a kind of touch player, whereas Scott, he tends to use his power and strength. He's a big lad, and he uses that in amongst the balls.
Yeah, and he's Mark would be more of the more methodical type, take your time type player, where Scott would perhaps have a little bit more firepower and a little bit more sort of, I don't know, maybe when he gets it going, maybe a little bit more exciting, but both players are unbelievable players, and both obviously, well, especially Scott last year, he had an unbelievable year, as good as anyone's ever had, I would say, certainly in the the modern era.
Yeah. And two absolute gentlemen of the game as well. Mark, a lovely guy. I've known him for quite a while now, and he really is top drawer. Only really met Scott for the first time about 18 months ago. But every time I meet him, it never fails to surprise me how kind of understated he is. Just a special talent. Doesn't carry any airs and graces.
No, I've just been talking to him and Jamie Burnett in the bar there for about an hour, and really top guy on and off the table. Tried to play the safety shot there. Obviously, the snooker behind the black was the objective, but over hit it or under hit it, whichever way you want to look at it, he has left him this red. Is it just me there, or is he playing this with right hand side? Is he meaning to play it with right? He struck it in the middle. Good shot.
He tends to address the ball like that. I'm not.
Yeah, I thought he was addressing that with right hand side. I didn't know if he was checking it, but he did address it with right hand side. But he did hit it in the middle, and the way you know he did hit it in the middle was the spots on the cue ball didn't spin, so he had to have hit it in the centre. Interesting to keep an eye on that to see if he does address every shot with right hand side. Some people do naturally see it like that.
And again, you know, we've talked about players over the weekend who have had a resurgence in their game. Mark Boyle, another one. He probably, excuse the pun, but probably went off the boil just slightly over the last 18 months. But since he's been kitted out with these new specs, he's got a new lease of life. He's really been struggling with his eyes for a while. Tried contact lenses and had a terrible allergic reaction. And I know we've mentioned the glasses before, but they are still relatively a new thing, a new addition over the sort of last 6 months or so, 6 or 8 months. And he's found winning ways again.
He may choose to screw back into his bad ball here. Oh, he's played that good. Because this red that's tied up next to the two yellows, I was about to say only goes into one pocket, which is this top right corner, but maybe it goes into the middle off the yellow. See, he's just pointing his cue there. Maybe if he gets his cue somewhere where the line meets the cushion, maybe he can play it off the yellow. We'll know after this shot. And by the way he's played that, yes he can. Maybe he can't. Maybe he's going the corner. No, he is going the corner. Good shot right in the middle. And those are the sort of shots that settle you down. You know, it's the first frame. He potted a good long ball to get in here, and he's played a couple of good, really intricate positional shots. And those are the shots that sort of settle you, especially happening, you know, in the first frame.
Yeah. So Scott may well have the slight psychological advantage. I think they met in a semi-final last year, in which Scott won in event 4. He went on to win the event, and then, as I mentioned, they played in the IPA event last week in the last 64, and he also won that one. So.
You can see the other matches going on there in the background. Craig Batten there playing on the first table. Colway Donahue on the second. There you go. As you can see there, that's a good camera angle we've got you there. Greg Batten's bridging over a yellow, about to pop the black. I presume the first frame. If it's not the first frame, it would be the second. Just caught the near knuckle and it stayed. If you are going to miss, slightly miss, then it needs to be far knuckle.
Second frame, Mark Boyle to break.
Just to let you know, if any of you noticed the people in the background behind Greg, they were just general punters, general members and customers playing. They weren't in the tournament, as you could probably gather.
Time back.
Very good break, very good result. There's one red that's tied up, but he's got the perfect angle first shot to pop the red in the corner and just hit the gap of the red and the yellow.
Time running.
So when he plays the shot here, when he plays into, I think the cue ball is going to hit the yellow first, I would play this with right hand side. So when the cue ball hits the yellow, the cue ball kicks into the red and just pushes it that way. A lot of players would maybe just play this plain ball. And even if he sticks to it, okay, he's got the one over the middle. But if he plays it with the right hand side, he would have just spun into it a little bit, but he's just chose to push it to the cushion. That's fine.
Just want to touch on a couple of the other scores from around the arena. Sean Chipperfield is 4-0 up against Carl Boyes. I mean, that game's been going for about 15 minutes. Just to put that into perspective. Jamie Burnett 2 each with Declan Brennan. Carl O'Donoghue 2-0 against Alex Bailey. Ronan McCarthy 2-0 against Craig Marsh. John McAllister 2-0 against John Rowe. But Carl Boyes has been playing well this weekend, and he's 4-0 down. Sean Chipperfield, a very destructive player when he's on it. He's very much on it. Early frames are often overlooked because, you know, someone goes 2-0 up, you kind of think, well, no big deal, but they are so important, just building the foundations for the rest of the match.
Yeah, and I think more importantly, it stops your opponent from settling before he's got a frame on the board, or really before he's got his hand on the table. It puts him under pressure. This TV table does play quicker than the other tables, and you can see what's happened here. He's just run this through 2 inches too far, and now he's got to really jack the cue up to get to the middle of the cue ball, because he needs to stun down this side of the table. But hit it really nice.
He just plays those shots so well, doesn't he?
Yeah, if you notice what he did there on his backswing, he actually just dipped into the cue ball and got an unbelievable amount of action on it, considering it was on the cushion. You can actually just see the chalk mark that's on that left side cushion where his tip actually hit the cushion before it struck the cue ball. Because he obviously knows this table's very quick, and probably quite a bit quicker than the outside tables. Because he knows that, he's now just under it, that, as I said before. He's still okay, he can just play a little soft screw shot onto the edge of the black, but straight would have been better. Perfectly controlled. He does play those little flicks and cannons really well, because he's got such a nice cue action, and he times the ball really good. He can just, when he's on it, he just plays those little flicks and cannons to perfection.
I see a lot of Mark Boyle in Liam Dunster's cue action as well. I think that Liam's probably studied Mark as, you know, someone who's come being a professional snooker player, and a lot, you know, that kind of the stance that he takes and the pause on the backswing. It's very similar to Liam.
Well, yeah, Mark's got a really, really good cue action, and doesn't necessarily stand in the textbook way. He has both legs bent and maybe off to the side, but he has got an unbelievable cue action, and he does strike the ball as sweet as anybody. So there's worse people for you to model your game on.
Yeah.
You can see there the scores. Morse just pulled one back against Ronan. Alex Bailey. Unbelievable. Just a touch on Alex Bailey. He's a local lad that lives in Stafford and obviously having a fantastic tournament. But he's he just plays in the county A team. He doesn't really play on any of the tours and doesn't really play in any of the big events. So for him to just pop up like this is especially given the players that he's beat, is an unbelievable achievement.
Yep. Just in the background, if anyone was eagle-eyed enough, they would have seen Greg Batten's score pop up to 2-1. He just won that next frame against Phil, and it looks like he's probably breaking in the fourth. So early advantage to him.
Yeah, one advantage. Oh, what about that for a break? Oh, he hit that good, and he hit it hard.
Yeah.
Slightly miss at the front ball, in the sense of the cue ball bounced off to the left-hand side, or to the right-hand side as we look. You can get this again for you, watch. Oh, I thought we were going to get it again. No.
I think we might in a minute. We got the wrong.
The beard guys are that good. We'll allow him one mistake every now and then, so there you can just see, look, he just catches the front ball just off centre, which bounces the cue ball into that left side cushion. I think he wants to go yellows, but he's got a tough first shot and he is going yellows, and as I said before, this is almost like the black. You pop this, you win the frame, you miss it, you lose, and it's right in the middle. And that's a good shot, considering, I say it's a good shot, he's concentrated that much on the pot that he's forgot a little bit about the cue ball. And the cue ball has just flicked off the edge of the red and left him sort of in the worst place really it could have gone.
He's just looking now if he can pick off the one just below the black, I think, or is it the second one below?
I think he can get to both of them, but it's not easy. But he made it look easy.
Just pots so well.
And you have to say both of those pots, considering that it's the start of a new match. It's obviously a big match. It's on the TV table. He's 2-0 down. He hasn't really touched the table.
I mean, you'd have to say with Scott that his cue ball's probably not quite as good as somebody like Phil Harrison, who just seems to always have it on a string, but his potting ability, he just pots himself out of trouble all the time, doesn't he? Incredible.
So the bottom one, screw back to somewhere where he is now. May use the side cushion. So much easier when you can use the side cushion. It means you can strike the ball.
He likes to play them firm, doesn't he? He doesn't like just drifting balls in. He's always punching them.
Yeah, he's got a very sort of punchy cue action, which sort of eliminates any cueing across the ball, I suppose, a little bit when he's striking it so sort of firmly. But good standard. And good start to this match, as you would expect, and as when most top players play, it comes down to the break. I don't think you're going to see many balls missed. Both guys are up for this, and I don't think there's going to be too many balls missed. I think it might be more about who makes balls from the break. John McAllister there is 3-0 up already against John Rowe, and he played Jack Wheel in the round before, who is without doubt the guy that's on form, the guy that's going through the biggest purple patch in the world of pool at the minute. And Jack was 10-3 ahead and basically came to the table once from 10-3 and lost 11-10. I think he said he had a chance at 10-7 or something from 10-3, and that was it. Just goes to show that the standard of some of the matches, it's a bit of a tough score when you're 10-3 ahead and you don't really get the chance to win.
Greg Batten now gone 3-1 ahead.
Hard balls break, leading by 2 frames to 1.
I was going to say that you might have been able to see that in the background, and if Greg was ahead, you might have been able to see that Phil was shaking his head, but you wouldn't have known that if it was 3-1 either way, because he does like to shake his head when he's perfect. I was watching where, wow, Jesus, what about this for a break? These guys are flushing the break at the minute. Oh, no.
That's your second one, Paul. That's 2 strikes. One more and you're out. He just wanted to get a picture of the trophy.
Oh, well, you can just take our word for it. That was a good break. But yeah, I was watching Phil in the match before he was actually playing on that table. And it is quite strange to watch that he shakes his head every single time he's perfect. And I personally don't understand how you can play like that, because it's almost like a negativity every single shot you play. Yeah. But look, it works for Phil. Definitely be going yellows here. And it's all about just getting the right angle. He's going to take the 2 yellows away at the top. So he's just going to screw the cue ball back here to somewhere just past the bulk line. So somewhere there. Didn't want that much angle, but I think what he's going to do now is he's going to pop the yellow to the top left, and he's going to screw the cue ball around 3 cushions. So he's going to go top cushion, side cushion, inside the black. There where he's pointing his cue, somewhere where the Supreme logo is on the left side, is the target there, where he's just put his finger. He's got a big area and a big target, but you see how much easier it is if you aim for a point somewhere. So here he's aiming for the Supreme bit, and that's exactly where he's come. Absolutely dead straight with the Supreme logo. Yeah, okay, he wouldn't have chose to be flat on the rail, but he's exactly on the Supreme logo. If you drew a line between the yellow and the cue ball and the Supreme logo, that's exactly where he is. Just needs to drop this so the cue ball doesn't move anywhere. Just okay, I think. If not, he's just bent down to have a look at that, but if he's not, he can turn it over with a bit of left-hand side. Yeah. He definitely won't miss this. You can see that he is playing with a tracer left, and you'll be able to tell by the cue ball. Seemed to ping a bit off that right side cushion. Would have wanted it to pull up a little bit so he could play the black into this corner, but the middle's okay. He did get a big bounce, I think.
This is top stuff from Mark Boyle so far. When the draw came out, he knows he would have had to find his best game to beat Scott, and he's doing everything right at the moment. It's 3 frames to 1.
Obviously interesting to see Jamie Burnett, the ex-snooker professional, playing in this tournament and playing in it really well. You have to say he beat Tom Cousins in his last match, the qualification match. And he's 3-2 down there to Declan Brennan, but you have to say he's playing a player there that certainly over in Ireland that everyone is raging about, and I know that Declan does spend a lot of time on the practice table, so he hasn't had the easiest of draws there, and I know Declan did beat him in an event a few weeks ago. But it's just interesting to see that he's turned his hand to the pool, and obviously he's putting some practice in, otherwise he wouldn't be beating the players he's beat.
Yeah, he said similar during an interview. That, he knows from his snooker background that there's no way he could compete at this level unless he was taking it seriously and putting in the time. And he is good friends with Scott Gillespie, and they do practice a lot together. And not many better practice partners to get your game going.
So Stephen Mitzi on the live stream says the commentators have a great insight. So thanks for the compliment, Steve.
Another lovely break.
Yeah, and it's always nice when you're going to be going for the suit where the other suit are just completely out of the way, so there's no traffic. He's looking if he can play the plant, but if he can't play the plant, it's okay. You can just skim off the edge of it and pop the yellow over the pocket and just develop the other one, and guaranteed to be on the other one over the pocket. So fully expect him to get the yellows. Although what it does do when you're obviously behind and your opponent's playing good is it does put pressure on every single shot and every finish you go for. You do have to obviously make sure, because any mistake now can be, 3, 4, 5 frame swings. So you have to make sure that you concentrate. He's going to play on the shot that I said he's going to play on this now. I don't know if he's a little bit short. I think he wanted to be more around the centre of the table, more around the blue spot. But it's not a problem. He can pop the one over the right middle if he feels he's not got the correct angle. See, he's pointing there. He wanted to be more on that line that he could play it. So I think you can either pop the one into this corner and screw back, or pop the one into the right middle and screw back. I presume he's only played on this one over the middle and he didn't decelerate on that. I would have liked to have left the one over the middle.
Yeah.
It's just more options.
This looks better. Very nice. Very well controlled pace, knowing that he's always going to be on the ball over the right hand side. It was really all about that one shot, made it look simple. Sean Chipperfield now 7-2 up against Carl Boys. 9 frames underway in a little over half an hour. Nice. Made the angle. And left a simple black. And now pulls back within 1 frame. It's 3-2. The one thing that you notice with Scott, he rarely makes that kind of rushed, silly mistake that you might see from other players. Sometimes you just see that really careless pot because they rushed it. Just doesn't seem to have those mistakes in him. His mistakes tend to come from running out of position.
Yeah, I really like the way that Gooseby plays. I just like the way he is around the table. He's aggressive. He's confident. He's aggressive. He sort of hits the ball with authority, and he has got serious firepower when he gets it going. I think he's good to watch. Mark rubbing his hands together there. I don't know if he's
Looks like
already counting the money or whether he's cold.
Looks like he's maybe feeling the cold just.
Yeah, I did mention that the few of the players when I walked into the arena, I didn't know if it was a little bit cold, but all the players said they wanted it the way it was. It was fine, so didn't put the heating on. But
Scott just stepped away for a bathroom break. He's just heading back in now. Mark's break in frame number 6. Just left of centre, right of our centre. Aiming point right in the middle of the front ball. Wow.
Timeout.
both of these lads are just dropping bombs on them at the minute. Not only dropping bombs on them, but they're just controlling the cue ball.
Look at this. And you see the spin on that cue ball as it spins back off the pack, and then the spin takes it over and bends it. Taking yellows.
I think he can go either, but I think he may go.
Time ready.
Yeah, he's going to go yellows. Yeah, he's definitely going to go yellows.
Only because the one, obviously, on the left arm that he's just put his finger near,
Yeah, and another
lends itself to positions.
Yeah,
to
and another reason, Nick, is I think the two reds that are together here next to the black spot, if the left one of them went into the corner, I think there's a case for reds. But because only the top one goes, then I think that's for me the reason why he'll go yellows. He's just having a look now, and I presume that bottom one doesn't go. I think if the bottom one goes, he'll go reds. If the bottom one doesn't go, then it makes it a lot trickier than it looks. You can see that I don't think that bottom one, the left of those two reds we're looking at, I don't think that one passes.
Yellows in play.
He'd like to have the cue ball back to where it's at now, having potted the red into the right middle, sorry, the yellow into the right middle. So he's going to play the one into the right middle and screw back to somewhere where he is now, so he can just top forward and land on his awkward ball down the cushion.
Couldn't have had the angle, so he's rerouted, taking this one just to the right of the black. Greg Batten's now 4-2 ahead, and Sean Chipperfield is 8-2 up on Cowboys. Carl O'Donoghue 5-1 against Alex Bailey. Was it you that mentioned Carl was due a deep run?
Yeah, I did think that, especially with him having no cue apparently, is an even more of a bigger achievement. He's perfect here. He can just soft screw this, especially with his cue action. Just get the cue ball to grip, but not travel very far and just land on this side cushion. For amateur players, or players.
Yeah, the pocket, the middle bag looks
The middle
massive
bag
for
looks
amateurs,
big,
doesn't it?
and it's easy to hit this so hard that the cue ball screws on and off the side cushion,
Yeah,
ends up on the top cushion. You see how softly he'll just hit that and get it to grip like that.
Beautiful. Such a lovely touch.
Like you say, you decelerate there, you go in the middle, you hit it too hard, you're on the top cushion.
Yeah.
I know it looked easy, but...
No, that takes a lot of skill.
So the guys on the stream are saying that table 3, the stream is buffering a little bit. Okay, we'll get them to look at that for you. 10 seconds. Good shot. It's good stuff, this, from both of them. Neither of them look like making a mistake at the minute. Okay, they haven't had anything ultra difficult to do, but it's about how well you do the easy things sometimes, or the things that you're supposed to get. And not only are they clearing every time they come to the table, but every pot that they make is going into the middle of the pocket as well, Nick.
Yeah, and the only difference between the two at the moment is that try break from Scott Elidors.
Like the breaker serve at tennis, isn't it? Can he get it back?
Yep. This is top stuff. So I'm sure most of you recognize these players, but in case there's anybody joining us who don't, we will have a quick look through their profiles. So first up is the man in the lead, Mark Boyle, Mr. Magic. He's 38 years old. He plays out of the Players' Lounge in Falkirk. He's married with 2 sons. He plays with a John Paris cue with an 8.65mm tip. A huge list of achievements to his name. Billiards, snooker, and many, many pool titles along the way, and also a prolific money match player. Just watch this break from Scott. Didn't seem to quite time that, didn't get that lovely burst.
Yeah, I don't think that was maybe anything to do with the way he hit it though. I don't know if they were all touching there or what, but they didn't seem to break properly. I don't know.
The only saving grace for him is that there are a couple of balls tied up because they didn't break so well, so it's not going to be totally plain sailing for Mark. He's got to do some work. Politely ask for the extension. Don't think I've heard anyone say please. First time he ever experienced playing any cue sports was on a small toy table when he was around 2 years old, but started playing properly when he was about 7. His inspiration are his family, and his favourite pool player is Mick Hill. suddenly with that one shot. He's opened everything up. Still got a tough next shot. He's got a thin cut to bottom left, or he's got a long pot to top right. Neither of which are particularly inviting. Maybe he can actually just cut this into the middle. I thought it just got a bit too far, but he could just catch it thin enough. Scott Gillespie, Goobsy, 33 years old. His fiancée is Melanie. He uses a Craftsman Q with a 9.2mm tip. Current black ball world champion. Won 2 of the Supreme events last year. Events 1 and events 4. Event 1 he beat Liam Dunster in the final. Event 4 it was Sean Story. He was a keen snooker player when he was younger, and at the age of 17 started playing pool, as he didn't believe that he could make the grade in snooker. He played his first pool tourney at under 21 level in Scotland and loved the game ever since. His dad's his greatest influence, as he was also a keen ball player. And now the new ambassador for the Supreme brand. I know something he's very proud of. Left a nice angle. Just run the cue ball in a straight line past the red. Won't want to be straight is the only key to this shot. So making sure he leaves himself a nice angle. The key there was more angle was better than none. It's better to underhit that shot than leave yourself on the top cushion.
Yeah, and the black does go into the centre if he does overhit it. Not that he's going to be that hard, but it does go if he's got it there if he needs to. Good shot. And 5-2, the way he's playing and the way he's breaking, it's definitely worrying times for Scott. Yeah,
For sure. You wonder how Scott is going to get this this break of serve back. At the moment it is looking,
well,
as you say, ominous.
Yeah, if Mark Potts here, it's a double breaker serve.
Of course, yeah. The other scores. Carl O'Donoghue now 6-1 up against Alex Bailey. Rob Chilton 5-3 against Rob Warren. Craig Marsh and Ronan McCarthy 4 each. Sean Chipperfield now 9-3 up against Carl Boyce. So they played 13 frames compared to John McAllister and John Rowe, who have played 6. I know it's not always about the how quickly you get across the line, but Sean Chipperfield, he just races. You can see Phil Harrison at the table in the background, looking good for another frame back. That game just about to go 4-3.
Eighth frame, Mark Boyle to break, leading by 5 frames to 2.
Incoming.
I did say if he pots a ball, it's a double breaker serve, and he hasn't. And the Reds just seem to come down into the middle of the table and just push the 2 yellows out into the open, which has made him a little bit easier than they first looked. The 2 Reds just both came down together and just flicked these 2 yellows away at the same time, I think. And he'll be going yellows. Not easy, and generally what happens when you're behind in a match, not through any fault of Goosby's, by the way, but when you're behind in a match, nothing seems to come easy. They'd be okay if he had an angle on this first ball across the back cushion to stun into the red and the yellow that are together, but I think he's literally bullet straight on it. As you can, maybe he can just manufacture something. If he had an angle on that way, he could just punch into those, he'd be okay. I think that's what he'll be trying to do. Like that, he did have an angle, and he played a really good shot. Neither of those 2 yellows obviously go into the left corner, so he's going to have to pot them both into the right corner, or obviously into the middle. These 3 down here are okay. He's got the one next to the black to just run through for the bottom one. So as long as he can sort of navigate through these 3 at the top and land on the one next to the black with a straightish angle, I think he'll clear.
Gaz, John's asked a question here. He's asked, would you mind clarifying the biggest differences in Supreme rules versus, say, American APA?
I don't.
Not that much of a difference, is there?
There's not really any difference.
Jump shots? Are you allowed to jump? You're not allowed to jump in APA, are you? I don't think. Or are you?
You know what? I'm not really too
I don't think you can.
100% sure in the American rules. They're almost identical. There's a few tweaks here and there, but there's nothing that would warrant even talking about, really. There's a few. I'm not 100% sure of it. Of what the differences are of the American rules. I've never actually played the American rules. The American rules, these rules, and the Chinese 8-ball rules are all very similar. Jump shots, you're right, certainly the Chinese is one of the differences. Foul from the break, where you have to put the cue ball behind the line and play a ball that's past the line in the Chinese rules. There's probably literally 1 or 2 variants between all 3 of them, but there's no major one. Sorry, I couldn't be any more of a help than that. Just why I was saying that. Scott missed the yellow to the middle, and yeah, arguably it was a bad miss. But he was playing it with a lot of left-hand side, so he was punching the cue ball on and off the top cushion with left-hand side. I did say that finish perhaps wasn't quite as easy as it looked, and
Roy's asked a question. If we had to tip one player left in the field to win the event, who would we pick? I mean, I would say...
I think almost. I think there's probably 12 or 13 of those players in the field that can win the tournament.
I was just about to say the same thing, with the exception of a few. There's probably any of them. I mean, on their day, you'd have to argue that probably all 16 are. But given some of these score lines, then you're going to write a few off. But Alex Bailey's 7-1 down against Carl O'Donoghue. Obviously not standing much of a chance, but. And also Sean Chipperfield on the hill against Carl Boyce. But I don't know, I've got a funny feeling about Carl O'Donoghue, as you mentioned earlier on, making inroads and due a deep run. But do you know what? I reckon Rob Chilton could turn back the years this weekend. We could easily see him in the final. You could definitely make a case for Mark Boyle. He's playing as good as I've seen him in a long time. It's difficult not to sit on the fence, really. It's so difficult to pin it down to one player. If you push me, I'm gonna go for Boyle. You have a particular favourite? If the bookie gave you a free bet of a £5, where's it going?
If the bookie give me a free bet of a £5, I would go Phil Harrison.
Yeah. Always hard to look past Phil. But, he's currently 4 each with Greg Batten. I've said it so many times, I'll say it again, that Phil just seems to have another gear that he goes into during the second half of a game. We see so many games where Phil's involved, where it gets to 4 each and 5 each and 6 each, and then before you know it, he's won at 11-7. We at Beard Productions have a vested interest in Greg Batten during this. Oh wow.
Well, he completely got himself in a bit of a pickle with that one, because look where the cue ball finished.
Yeah.
He tried to play the cue ball around 2 cushions, but he was playing into quite a tight gap. Obviously too hard, he was snookered too low where he is there, it was no good, so...
Will Mark possibly be using the rules to his advantage, maybe pop the red to top left and then play the plant red onto yellow and leave Scott snookered?
That's exactly what he'll do.
Is that the shot?
And obviously screw the cue ball back. Scott's been a little bit fortunate in the sense of he hasn't completely got the yellow over the pocket. If the yellow was over the pocket, then obviously this is easy. What he can do is play one of the 3 reds onto it instead of the one at the cushion and just leave him glued behind the other one.
Sure.
He'll probably play the top one onto it. Obviously, if it follows it in, you carry on. So you have to be mindful that... Oh, he hasn't seen my shot, Nick.
No. And players are just still not attuned to these rules, are they?
No, they're not quite, no. Not quite. Although, where he's finished here, he's glued him on the knuckle, and I'm not sure he can even hit the back cushion.
Of course, in these rules, there are no totals, so he can't just run off the side rail and nudge into the yellow. He has to hit a rail. He has to hit a cushion.
Yeah, and he'll get close to it. Oh, I was going to say he'll get close to this. I fancied him... I think he thought he had to hit that hard, Nick, to create the angle, but I think from the angle it was coming in at, you almost just have to if it was straight off the cushion, then all you have to think about is you're just trying to pop the cue ball into the corner pocket.
Yeah.
If you can create the angle where it's a natural angle, the cue ball comes off the side rail and pops the cue ball into the corner. If you get close to that, then that means you get close to potting the yellow.
We've mentioned it a couple of times over the weekend that the players just aren't yet. They don't yet have these tactics and these rules embedded in their psyche. So Mark not seeing what may be the obvious shot and probably a frame-winning shot. It's definitely not cost him. He's going to win the frame anyway, but there's probably another way to go about it. He's going to probably leave this ball to bottom left till last. It squeezes past the yellow. We'll probably take the 3 at the top of the table now. This little triangle of balls. So it's pure queuing. Boyle is in some sublime form. 6-2. It's going to be a long, long road back for Scott Gillespie. A tough ask to come back from this.
Ninth frame, Scott Gillespie to break, trading by 6 frames to 2.
Dry again from Goobsy. Sean Chipperfield's through to the quarter-final. He's feeling a bit tired. He wanted an early night, so he's just stuck in a quick 11-4 against Carl Boyce, and he's going to head back to his hotel room. That was a demolition in about an hour. So yeah, 15 frames in an hour, and he can have the rest of the evening off. So another dry break from Scott. And you got to say, at 7-2, the writing's pretty much on the wall there, isn't it, for Scott? You're relying on mistakes from Mark, and he's just not been making them, and he doesn't look like making them. This is about as good as Mark Boyle plays. Even the little kisses are going his way.
Yeah, he just doesn't look like missing at the minute, does he? I did talk to him in the bar briefly before he was walking out to play this match, and he just said he felt like, certainly all day today, he hadn't played good, and he just felt as though he kept queuing across him, and he had been for quite a few weeks. And I just said to him, well, if your cue ball control is as it normally is, then you don't really have to pot many difficult balls, and that's exactly what's happened in this match. He hasn't really had to pot a difficult ball because he's been not only right behind everything, but he's had the correct angle on everything. So it's just about pace control, exactly like that. Okay, he's slightly under it, that, but it's okay. He's just he'll just take his medicine, and he'll just be a few inches away from the black than he would have liked to have been, but
that is one very noticeable thing about Mark Boyle. He really hits a hard shot. The cue ball is always fairly delicately hit. You can see he's definitely addressing the ball on the right hand side. So as he's queuing up to the ball, you can see he cues to the right hand side of the ball, but in delivery he hits the very centre. Unusual nuance. I've seen a few players do it.
almost every single player does address the cue ball with one side or the other. It's just maybe not quite as extreme as you can see with Mark, but almost every player does do it. It's just maybe not visible to the naked eye, and it does get emphasized a little bit more when you're watching someone on TV or on the stream, where we can see it like this, where we've got the advantage of the HD cameras, the overhead views and stuff. But almost every single player addresses the cue ball on one side or the other.
Would that be like consistently on the same side? So you either always address it on the left, or you always address it on the right?
You would always address it on the same side, yeah. It's just the way that you see it and the way you walk into the shot. I think that's
something to do with the positive eye as well, whichever one's the dominant eye.
The dominant eye, and that's one of the things where I'm sure everyone's seen at the minute, where some of the snooker players are working with the sight right stuff, and that's one of the things that they basically do. They get you to walk into the shot and look at the shot on the way down from a certain.
You can see from that is.
You can see there. Look, he is addressing the cue ball to his right or left by quite a bit. But when he pushes the cue through, it does strike the middle of the cue ball.
Yep.
I used to practice quite a lot with Jamie Cope, who was a top 16 snooker player, and he used to address the ball with an unbelievable amount of right-hand side, like you wouldn't believe. So when he was, for example, the cue ball was to the left-hand side of the blue spot, so he played a shot where he was going to land with an angle on the blue to play into the pack and play the cannon into the pack. If the cue ball was on the right-hand side of the blue, as we look at the table, he would naturally play that with a bit of right-hand side. If the cue ball was on the right-hand side of the table, and he would have to play that with naturally a bit of left-hand side, he would effectively have to cut straight across the cue ball because he addressed it with so much side. And the same with the shot to nothings on the reds. So obviously he was better when he was playing the shots that he was naturally playing with right-hand side. Judd Trump addresses the cue ball with an unbelievable amount of side. Noticeably that you can see it. So it doesn't do him any harm.
goes without saying that this is a must-win frame. Even if he does win it, it's still a massive road back, but this would be one against the serve.
And it's a start. You can't look at the scoreline, you just have to take one ball at a time, one frame at a time, and it ain't over till it's over, as I'm sure John McAllister will tell you.
Absolutely.
Playing against the informed player in the world, 10-3 down.
Most players are going up. There are players in this competition whose head would have gone down and they would have just been battering the balls around the table. Yeah. For sure, would have given up. Shows some self-belief. But you have to have that self-belief, don't you? I mean, if at any point you think you're beaten, then you are beaten. You have to fight for every scrap.
That's right. A lot of it is at Q Sports is about what's between the ears.
What's your most satisfying comeback, or your biggest comeback?
I was what was it? I was 7-2 down to Clough once in the semi-finals of the World Championships, which is on the Sky.
Yeah.
A few of the Masters events that I won in China, I was 8-2 down, 8-3 down in the same tournament. First to 11 against Clough, I was 7-2 down, first to 10. Those are ones off the top of my head that I can remember.
Does it give you a kind of new lease of life? It gives you almost a different perspective on the tournament, because you should have been beaten. You've got a dog's life, and then suddenly you can play with a bit more abandon.
That's exactly right. That's exactly what happens, you know. And you find what does happen with that a lot is when that's happened to someone maybe in the first or second round, when they've been that far behind, or something mad has happened that they've happened to win when they shouldn't. It almost gives you almost like a free rolling or type attitude of, well, I should have already been out now. Especially, you know, it's only in the recent years that we've played double elimination. You know, back in, say, the older days, the days when I was playing it, certainly the English 8 ball, it was always single elimination. So when that something happened, you almost felt like, well, I should have already been driving down the motorway now on my way home, so I'm almost free rolling, and it sort of lifts a pressure off you somehow, and you're able to just say, right, well, I should have been out. Everything from here is a bonus.
Frame, stop Gillespie to break, trailing by 7 frames to 3.
Wow, you can't believe that one. There was a red ball that you saw it dip towards the middle bag, and just caught the knuckle and popped out. Has he gone dry there? But it's been a feature of this match. For as good as Mark has been, Scott has given him the chances through his dry breaks. This could be closer had he been able to pot consistently. But as long as he's going dry and Mark's playing the way he is, there's no way back into this game.
Extension call.
So frustrating as a player when the break virtually dictates the game. He has made a few mistakes along the way for sure. It's not just the fault of the break, but
It is only a few though,
yeah.
and the only way he is going to get back into this match, you're right, is if Mark's break dries up, because it just doesn't look to me like Mark's going to make any mistakes, certainly not any mistakes that you wouldn't expect him to make.
There's a scoreline that has just bypassed me there. Declan Brennan is 10-3 up against Jamie Burnett. Jamie, who's had an awesome weekend, has come up against a brick wall in Declan Brennan. Unusual miss there from Mark. But has he left this one? If he's not left the one past the red, then he has not left very much at all. He's been quite fortunate. Don't think it goes.
Yeah, and just as I was saying that, I don't think he's going to get back into this match by any mistakes of Mark's. He's just made one.
Extension call.
Shot. Shot. Really thin cut. And he's given himself half a chance. He was lucky to push those two yellows into a plant on the top rail. Still not a gimme, but he's given himself a chance. Can't let him get on a charge. Mark has to keep his foot firmly on his throat. Does he have another plant? I think he's pushed those two into a plant, hasn't he? So, back-to-back plants. And,
Good shot. All three of the reds, all three of the yellows go, and the mistake's going to get punished.
Somebody asking why Darren Appleton's not here. I know he's currently touring the States. I think he wants to put his focus back into 9-ball. Well, I say he was touring the States. I know he's recently had a family bereavement as well. And we send our best wishes to him at this sad time. Very sorry to hear about your loss, Darren, and we hope you're doing well, and we hope that maybe he'll join one or two of the events later in the year. But I know that he had this bit of a trip back into 8-ball when he came back over to the UK, and I think talking to him over a course of a few different interviews and commentaries, he just felt that his heart was still in the bigger ball game over in America, and I think he's got the drive and ambition, the desire to get back in that Mosconi Cup team as well. So I think it's just about refining his form in 9-ball for now for Darren, and probably felt he was trying to spread himself a bit thin, playing 8-ball and 9-ball. But hopefully we see him back at some of the events in the UK. people looking through the window watching Phil Harrison against Greg Batten on the table 5. It's a nice table to play on, that table 5. Plenty of room around it, and people can spectate from various different angles from the bar, also from this side.
And also you've got the other stream table there with Ronan and Marsh just to the left.
Yep.
You've got the other stream table just behind, which is table 4, and obviously the other stream table just behind that of 3. So from that angle you can see all of those matches, but I think the Declan Brennan one is about to finish.
You can see Phil shaking his head and shrugging his shoulders, so he's probably perfect on his next ball.
That match is 5 each. So very slow, because they did start 15 minutes or so before this.
Extension called.
My first instinct was reds, but you wonder if the 2 yellows are a plant to middle. You could almost make a case for yellows here, couldn't you? Because if you play that plant, you're going to break up all 3 of those balls. The reds don't come without their problems. There's a red that's hampered to the top left by the black. The 2 yellows do look dead set. Well, no, they're not. They're set just to the knuckle. So he will be going reds. He needs to think about what he's going to do with the red just below the black. It does go to top right, and he's got a ball just to the left of it, which he can use to land on it.
You can see he is queuing up with extreme right hand side for this one, so watch the cue ball. Zip. Perfect. Very good shot. At this pace, anything near knuckle won't drop. He needs to, if he's going to be slightly out, he'll take that nudge, and he did put his hand up to apologise. I like just dropping that in and playing on the left or not past the black first. The reason I say that is because you've got so many options with that. If you land to with the angle to the left, angle to the right, you can play on the first red, the second red. Now he's a little bit tricky.
Gonna play this around 2 cushions.
Yeah, and this was my point, Nick. If he come with the off angle, like he has come, and he'd still got that other red there, he could have punched across for it now.
Yeah.
Now it's not there. Obviously, he hasn't got that luxury, so he can only obviously play on the other one. I think he could have got close to this off the top rail, and he's just come with a funny angle, to be fair. I think he's almost like, if he plays with topspin, he might be topping into it. He's playing with, yeah, it's a nasty angle.
It is. It's horrible.
He's playing with the right-hand side, but I think that's the way he addresses anyway. It doesn't necessarily mean he's going to strike it there. He's played on the double.
Yeah.
He's played on the double, and he's played it good because he's left it dead straight.
Nothing to do with the cue ball.
Yeah, good shot.
Very nice.
Good shot. Good shot. The shot before to leave himself dead straight on the double was very good. Very, very good. And he just looks like at the minute, okay, he made the mistake in the frame before, but at the minute he just looks like he can put the cue ball wherever he wants. Gillespie just sort of pots the balls from anywhere, where Mark just puts the cue ball anywhere. That would be my analysis of the two players. Phil Harrison, Greg Batten game, that's been locked at 5 each for ages, so it's not very often at these rules you get a 15-minute frame, so I'm not sure exactly what's going on there, whether they've not updated the tablet, but as you can see in the background there, Phil is at the table.
Scott Gillespie to break, trailing by 8 frames to 4. Timer.
This one's going, oh, I thought for a second it was going dry the yellow. Found its way into top right. First instinct was it was another dry one.
Whenever Scott does slightly miss hit the break, and this has been ultra critical, I mean, what I mean by slightly miss hit the break is he didn't hit the front ball completely flush, Nick, so the cue ball hits the side cushion. He always hits it on the left side as he looks, so the cue ball, you know, hits that left side cushion. He never catches it on the other side, which, you know, going back to one eye dominant and the way that you address the cue ball means that he always slightly catches it to the left rather than the right. I've never ever seen the cue ball off one of his breaks hit the left side cushion as we look. Don't want to go too deep on it all, but 3 or 4 times now he's broken the cue ball, has hit that right side cushion as we look.
Yeah, it's something that Phil Harrison does consistently. He
Well, sorry Nick, this is desperately unlucky, by the way, because I don't think he's on the one into the left middle. And if he's not on the one into the left middle, and he's not on the one to the top left corner, where does his pot come from?
does the
Is he on it? Is he turning the cue ball over? Yeah, he tried to turn it over, and he wasn't quite on it. That was unlucky, to be fair.
You saw the cue ball spinning after he hit it, so you knew that he'd just tried to turn it slightly.
He's got a shot, you know, first shot. So the yellow that's in the middle of the table, almost just to the left of the blue spot there, you can pot that into the corner, first shot, take the cue ball, side cushion, top cushion, and flick his bad ball out first shot.
Yep.
He's guaranteed to be on the ball over the middle.
Yep.
For me, if he gets that right and cannons either the red or the yellow, he'd be unlucky not to have some sort of shot on something. And again, Nick, it's about targets, and he is playing my shot, so see where his hand is on the table. If he aims for the cue ball to go 2 cushions back to his hand, like this.
Perfect.
have to say it's probably gone as bad as it could have.
Yeah. It's a perfect contact, but as you say, it's gone nasty. It could have come out much nicer. This is a tough clearance now.
Yeah, it's nasty now.
Yeah, one just where the yellow's gone, hampered by the black.
Can he screw back and play on his bad one now? If he could screw back there and take his bad one out of the way, but
he's trying to see the ball now that he uses to get back down onto this yellow, isn't it?
Does the ball go up the rail past the black? If it does, how does he get there? Okay, so there is a line, but it's very tight. So he can pop one of the yellows, the one that's the top side of the line, and then screw back, leave the cue ball in the middle of the table, and then play the other yellow and go 2 cushions, top cushion, side cushion, and draw the line inside the yellow. But obviously it is tight past it, so he's playing my way, but he's gonna play onto the one on the side rail first. He's playing a bump off the back of the. He's playing a bump off the back of the red.
Yeah.
And knowing that this is a good way, actually. It's a good way because
if he gets it wrong, he's still got the one.
Yeah, and if he gets it wrong and hits the red full ball and leaves himself dead straight on the one at the rail, he's basically making a gap for the cue ball to screw back into.
Yep.
So this is really good thinking, to be fair. And as long as he catches the red somehow, it'll be good. As long as you don't want to catch it like that. I mean, if he catches it cushion first somehow.
No, this is horrible.
Well, firstly, he has to pop the one at the rail, and can he kill the cue ball enough that he can leave the cue ball into the gap to see enough of it to clip it over to the corner? He'll definitely play it with the left-hand side, and what the left-hand side does is it kills the cue ball off the rail. What an effort that is! Look where he got the cue ball to.
Some effort.
Okay, he didn't make it. So you know, arguably, obviously, he created too much angle. But I'd have potted that and got the cue ball back to there. That would have been the shot of the tournament. Gillespie doesn't mess about. He just starts clubbing him in straight away. Not an uncontrolled clubbing him in, by the way. It's controlled, but I like that he doesn't mess about. He knows what he has to do, and he just gets on with it.
You know, there could be a twist and turn of this game yet. 8 frames to 4. Make this clearance. It's 8-5. If Mark breaks dry, could be 8-6. And break dish is 8-7. Games can turn around that quickly. Mark needs to stay on the top of his game for now. Someone mentioned that the commentator alongside me is very knowledgeable. He is indeed. It's Gareth Potts. Knows a little bit about the game, don't you? Played a few frames in your time.
Yeah, I try. Yeah. Big frame, that one.
Yeah,
See,
really.
9-4. It's almost game over.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially the way he'd been playing. 8-5. Hold serve. Game on.
Yeah. Mark is going to be breaking the next frame, but all Scott's going to be hoping for is a dry break and a chance. Any kind of chance in the next frame. 8-6 with him breaking, and the game suddenly has a very different complexion. Craig Marsh and Ronan McCarthy locked together at sevens. They'll play each other on a regular basis on the IPA, know each other's games intimately. Phil Harrison just edging that game against Greg Batten. You can see Greg Batten at the table, and looks like he's on a clearance. The Jamie Burnett game has disappeared off the screen. That's because Declan Brennan has beaten him 11 frames to 4. So a good showing from Jamie. You can take a lot from this weekend, a lot of pride coming on to the smaller table and getting to the last 16 in one of his first major competitive events. I know he plays a lot of pool around Scotland, and we look forward to seeing him for the rest of the series.
Yeah, and just a word on Declan. Obviously, there's been a lot of hype about him, especially from Ireland. But he's yet to win a big tournament in England. So yet to prove. It's alright people saying that you're going to do this, going to do that. I remember having that nick from quite a young age, but until you actually do it, it isn't. The silverware isn't in the cabinet and the checks are not in the bank, so he's won some events in Ireland and there's no doubt he's a very, very good player, but still yet to prove it. He's now in the quarterfinals, so every chance of doing it here.
Played a couple of tough money matches, which he's come through with flying colours, and if he can emulate Ronan and what Ronan's achieved in the game, or even half of what Ronan's achieved in the game, then he'll be doing well. He definitely has all the fundamentals. Still a young man, still has time on his side.
I have watched a little bit of him, and I do think it's only a matter of time before he does win a big tournament.
Yep.
He has got everything. The fundamentals are there.
We talked about players' ages a bit over the weekend, and Declan's actually 26 years old. We saw Cian Monaghan has entered the events at just a young age of 16, and a lot of people know about Cian. Played a lot of money matches and very rarely off the table, and I know he absolutely loves the game. I've seen him in and around the game in so many events that I go to over the last couple of years, and many great years ahead of him probably if he can hold his passion for the game. But talking about players' ages, Declan at 25 years old, what kind of age would you see a player reaching his prime? Probably in snooker, I would say it's maybe 30, 31 is kind of maybe early 30s. Players do reach their absolute best. Scott Gillespie, around about 33 years old, I think he is 34 now. He's probably reaching the heights of his career.
It's a really good question, and I don't really know the answer to it, and I'm not sure anyone really knows the answer to it. I don't think there's an exact age and an exact formula. I think it depends, and it's different for different people. And what I mean by that is different people obviously achieve things at different times, so therefore they tend to peak at different and given what stage of their life they're putting the work in, and you know what. But I personally would say that it's around the late 20s to the early 30s. I know that's a bit of a generalization, but it's around that time of when people seem to be at their peak and seem to be at, you know, the maximum sort of winning. But it's interesting because I actually had a conversation with Stephen Hendry about, you know, about this, and about you know, obviously, you know, he retired early from snooker, and he retired when he was in the top 16. I completely agree with the reason why he retired. You know, he didn't want to be, you know, hacking around the qualifiers like some of the other greats have done, and that obviously tarnishes the legacy, if you like, of the player. So he wanted to go out while he was at the top, and obviously he financially he was able to do that. So I completely agree with where he was at with that. And you know, he says that he thinks that one of the first things to go, as in one of the first things that you lose with age, is your bottle.
Yeah, really, wow.
So Hendry thinks that one of the first things that, you know, you lose more than maybe your eyesight or your cue action or whatever it is you want to say. He thinks that your bottle is one of the first things to go.
That's really interesting.
And obviously coming from
some people would say almost one of the first things you can lose is, I won't say the will to win. You've always got the will to win, but it's almost so many players just kind of fall out of love with the game because life gets in the way or whatever. They get a bit complacent. We've seen so many players, like even Wayne Fryer's come back this weekend after 20 years away from the game, and literally it's because he took a year off and just found that he never missed the game. People just kind of, and again, I don't want to say it's lose the will to win. It's almost lose the will to play, lose the will to be competitive. It seems like one of the first things that often goes. But yeah, it's interesting that Hendry says it's bottle, because that does make a lot of sense.
Played that nice. Played that nice. He had to. He potted that fat, and with potting it fat, he held the cue ball. Had he ever potted that into the opposite side of the pocket, the cue ball would have been probably another 12 inches over to the right hand side.
Good stuff. And he needed that frame. He stopped the rot. It was a glimmer for Scott. I mean, he's still not out of the game, but if Scott could have somehow found that frame, the pressure would have been firmly back on Mark.
But just going back to that, Nick, I think that the snooker is very different, obviously, from the English 8-ball in the sense of the bottle comment, because I don't think you perhaps need as much bottle at the English 8-ball as, you know, you perhaps do at the snooker. So maybe it doesn't exactly apply the same.
Yeah.
But there are things that obviously start to deteriorate the older you get. I mean, you know, look at the level that Steve Davis played to. You know, he was in his 50s and was still competing on the main tour.
Yeah.
Jimmy White still playing to a very, very high standard. Ken Doherty still playing to a very high standard. Still capable of beating any players in the world, especially Doherty on his day.
15th frame.
Rona McCarthy, he's 50 years old a few months ago in February, and well, what's the score at the minute? But I think he's maybe 7 each, 8 each with Craig Marsh, still winning tournaments. Well, talking about dropping bombs on it, he dropped another one there, and he's got nothing for his efforts. Again, Nick, look where the cue ball went. Over to that right side cushion.
Yep.
Every single time, that's where it goes.
I did see you mentioned Jimmy White. I saw Jimmy was doing a tour of exhibitions over in Thailand, where he hooked up with a very exciting young girl who plays over there called Fa Manpao. I apologise if I pronounce that wrong, but I know she's very young girl who's making it big on the scene over there. And Jimmy was touring around Thailand doing exhibitions with her.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's the same girl that played in the Joy. I think she played in the Joy Chinese 8-ball Masters this year.
Yeah,
that was her. I actually practiced on the next table to her in China. And she looked very talented. She was potting some really good balls, and you can just see that she was doing serious amount of hours on the practice table, and you can just see that not.
Oh, she's got a real hunger for the game.
How talented she is,
yeah.
you can just see. I don't care what Ronnie O'Sullivan says or what anyone else says. Ronnie O'Sullivan is practicing serious amount of hours, because you can't be that good and look that comfortable around the table if you're not. I know that Ronnie puts serious amounts of hours in, but he likes to sometimes make out in interviews that he isn't and that he doesn't. But I can promise you that he does, and you can't look that comfortable and be that good unless you're putting. I know he's an unbelievably talented guy in the world of any sport, whoever you compare him to. But you don't get to that level unless you're putting serious amounts of practice in.
And I reckon a good aim for the Supreme Ball Series, maybe for one of the events later this year or even into next year, would be to get a lady or two on the event. That would be great to see. Someone of the stature of Emma Cunningham. And I see that Nat Madden's been here over the weekend, and I know that Nat played Tom Cousins in the IPA Open last weekend in the first round and pushed him close. I think she was beaten 7-6 by Tom Cousins. So if you're picking up 6 frames off Tom Cousins, you're doing something right. It'd be great to see one of the ladies enter the event.
Yeah, Danny Jones said on the chat, I heard Gareth once say that he stayed fit and healthy because he had a theory of being physically fit helped him mentally. He says that Marsh and Ben Davies and others are putting that theory to shame. We're all different. Well, I sort of beg to differ. I had a chat with Dunster, and he spoke about it in his interview about how he'd changed things and how he'd changed the regime of going to the gym and trying to get fitter, and he felt like it helped him. Going deep in these events over the last 5 events, or any of these events where they're long distances, double elimination, those guys haven't particularly done well, who you've mentioned. I'm not saying it's for that reason, I'm just saying that they haven't. I do think that being physically fit does help mentally, and when you're playing races of money match races, race to 30, race to 11, and you're having to play 3, 4, 5 matches in a day, 6, 7, 8 matches, race to 8 through the loser section, nobody can tell me that being physically fit isn't an advantage.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's lots of different facets to it as well, aren't there? There's there's players who take it extremely seriously. Someone like Scott Gillespie, you won't see him with an alcoholic drink in his hand over the weekend, nor probably Mark Boyle, unless they're already out of the tournament. Others enjoy the festivities at the end of the day, and when they've got to get up at 9 o'clock in the morning, maybe not playing 100%. And it's that level of professionalism. It's all about making sure your diet's right. When you've got to play these long days, it's easy to get into the habit of eating junk food, maybe drinking energy drinks, but then you just get sugar spikes, and then when you crash, if you crash in the middle of a match, you're absolutely doomed. I've seen it many a time in money matches, and I've recognised it in people when they crash in the middle of a game. I saw Max Nosko do it against Greg Batten, and he'd been eating and drinking rubbish. I discussed it with him afterwards, and all he does now is take a bunch of bananas into the corner and a glass of water, and that's all he does. You watch him in any money match, he'll have a bunch of bananas in the corner and a bottle of water, and it's about just doing the right things.
Yeah, and that makes sense because bananas are a slow release sugar. So as opposed to a chocolate bar, like you say, which is the sugar rush. So
I mean, some of these money matches are lasting for 8 hours. When he played Jez Graham, it lasted almost 9 hours. That's a long working day for anybody, and all they're doing is taking a bathroom break now and again, and occasionally every couple of hours they might take a 15-minute break. To keep those levels of concentration over that period of time is just ridiculous.
It definitely helps. Look, we're not saying that these, anyone that's a little bit overweight or that can't win tournaments. Of course they can, because they're unbelievably talented. Any of these players that you're referring to are unbelievable pool players, and they're obviously capable of winning events, and they do win events. I'm talking about consistently winning events over these distances. The IPA tour isn't over these distances, and any other tour isn't over these distances. It's not double elimination, at least to a certain point, but they're race to sevens. When you're talking race to 11s, over 128 field double elimination, and you're having to play, especially through the loser's side, maybe 8, 9, 10 matches if you lose your first match just to get to the last 16 or the quarterfinals. You're talking of serious amount of matches and concentration. It has to help. I'm not saying these guys can't win and they don't do good because they're unbelievably talented. I'm saying that they could do better.
Frame. Mark Boyle to break. Feeding by 9 frames.
Mark Rose says, I agree, being physically fit helps. Plus, if you feel good, you look good, can only help you. Totally agree. Mentally, if you feel like you feel good, you look good, it definitely helps with the confidence. And Q sports and any other sport is confidence is a huge part. Mark's gone to the cup break. The last ball rolling, flew into the corner.
So here's a question for you from me. I often see players turn up to money matches. I mean, I always believe in a good image. I like to dress how I dress, and when I play pool, I like to dress in a certain way. In anything I do, really, and because it gives you a confidence and a boost. And I see so many money matches where players turn up in a pair of tracksuit bottoms and a shirt, and it is important to feel comfortable. Where's the balance between feeling comfortable or portraying yourself in a certain way? I mean, I would prefer to look a bit better, and just to feel better about yourself, because you get that inner confidence, don't you? Where does the importance lie in either looking good or feeling good?
I think the answer to that is completely depends on the person.
Yeah,
Somebody, I'm completely with you on it, by the way, but some people wouldn't be, and it completely depends on the person. Some people would argue, well, it's irrelevant what I'm wearing, how I look, of how I perform on the table. To me personally, if you said to me, I have to wear that bright orange shirt over there to play the match that the referee's wearing, I wouldn't be able to pot a ball, to be honest. I would have to feel comfortable in my own clothes wearing what I wanted to wear.
Yeah.
But that's just me. Some players would argue, what the hell has that got to do with it? Feeling comfortable with what you're wearing and the way that you look is, for me, is also important, but I understand the other argument of, to them, they're happy with what they're wearing, and turning up in a pair of tracksuit bottoms and a dirty pair of trainers is okay to them, then that's fine.
Extension called.
So Mark Boyle falling foul of the rules there. He did that a few times during the World Rules events. I think he played a plant, and of course that is a loss of turn shot.
So Gurney said that was a good point, Nick, you asked. He said, but he agrees with what Gareth said, and it is down to the individual of how they feel about everything, I suppose. Whatever makes you feel comfortable and whatever makes you perform to the way you need to perform is what you need to do. Everybody is different in every single way, obviously.
Danny, I think, probably got the wrong end of the stick there. I have absolutely no problems over the way Craig and Ben look. I'm a big fan of both of theirs. I think, as I say, I think you got the wrong end of the stick there. We weren't talking about how they look. We're talking about the how they perform. And it's a question of stamina over longer races. And I think they'd probably be the first to agree. It's certainly no criticism. Everyone's different, and you know, no issues there at all.
The Scottish boys have opted for a sports skin-tight skins look, like almost Under Armour sort of running top underneath the top there. I noticed that not a lot of the 9-ball players are doing it. It wouldn't personally be for me wearing a long sleeve top underneath a t-shirt, but again, it's what works for you. If you feel comfortable and feel that's the way, then that's the way. And it definitely isn't doing these two boys any harm, because they ain't really made too many mistakes in what's this, 15, 16, we're now into the 17th frame, and it's been pretty faultless.
And quietly, he's back in this game. 9-7 with the break in the next. If he can find a break dish, the pressure is going to be firmly back on Mark, and Mark from a position where it looked like he was very, very much in charge of this game, has now got Scott nipping at his heels. High quality player. You can never write him off. Let's have a quick look at the other scores from around the arena. You can see them on the screen, but I just wanted to mention that Carl O'Donoghue we already know is through against Alex Bailey. Sean Chipperfield we know is through against Carl Boys, and Declan Brennan through against Jamie Burnett. How the draw will shape up, so Carl O'Donoghue will face the winner of Rob Chilton and Rob Warren. Rob Warren currently on the hill. He's been behind quite a lot in that game.
Ronan McCarthy, the score's just flicked over there.
Yep.
He's 10-9 ahead against Craig Marsh.
So if Ronan can go on to win that game, he will play the winner of Phil Harrison and Greg Batten.
Yeah, and you know something just on Ronan there. I know he's 50 years old now, but he might not look, as though he's in the gym every day, but he is really physically fit. He's got a really physically demanding job that he does for long hours. He works very hard. So for him to come here and play pool for 10-12 hours a day and concentrate for 10-12 hours a day is, well, it's nothing to him. And hence why he's been arguably, well, in my opinion, the biggest money player in the history. Well, he is the biggest money player, arguably the best money player in the history of English 8-ball. He is somebody that is very, very physically and mentally fit, Ronan. He would stand there all day.
Pablo asking if, sorry guys, if you can play opposite colour plant on the first shot after the break. No, you can't. So basically in these rules you have to, you don't have to pot the object ball that you're hitting. You can play that plant, but it is a lot of turn. It's basically a failed combination shot. If you pop both of the balls, then you continue with your break. But because you've hit the yellow first, if you plant it onto the red, it's just the same as any other time during the game. It just hands the shot, the table over to your opponent. A couple of players have fallen foul of that rule over the weekend, and a couple of players have recognised it and taken advantage of it.
Doesn't need to play any cannons. They all go. The one next to the black goes into the top left corner. He can land straight on the one that's next to the line. As you saw when Scott sat back down his chair there, he isn't one for too much emotion and doesn't show too much of what's going on, and I'm all for that. He's got a very good temperament, but when he sat down he did just shake his head, and rightly so. He knew the importance of this frame, and he knew that he'd left a finish that, the way Mark Boyle's playing, that he's probably going to get.
So we are playing two supreme rules. It is a very, very slight variation on what is probably the most commonly played set of rules in the world. Well, I say probably, definitely. It's very similar to the rules they play in America. The APA rules also very similar to the rules that they play in China. There are a few nuances. Very attacking rule set. Absolutely no benefit in covering a pocket in these rules. They are designed to be easy on the eye. Designed to be aggressive. You will not see any fudging and covering of pockets in this, because there really is no benefit to it. It's a rule set that was introduced last year. It's synonymous with the Supreme Pool Series, but there are other events that are adopting these rules now. But as always, the rules entirely irrelevant when you break dish, or, as Mark's doing, reverse dish. Again, another nice clearance here from Mark at the right time. He now puts himself on the hill. 10 frames to 7. He is going to have the break in the next frame. Rob Warren now through against Rob Chilton. That's a good win. Really good win for Rob Warren. Didn't really feature in the latter stages of last year's event. Good to see him playing well. That Ronan McCarthy game still poised at 10-9. Greg Batten now 2 behind Phil Harrison, 8-6. And is Phil Harrison finding those extra gears that I mentioned. John Rowe 9-6 up on John McAllister. Craig Marsh has just won the next frame, and it's now Hill 10 apiece against Ronan McCarthy.
I think we've created a huge talking point, Nick, on there. Well, about everything we spoke about regarding physical fitness. I personally don't see how it's even a talking point, but there's a lot of different opinions and a lot of different analogies of what should and shouldn't make the perfect pool player. This match sort of went 4-2, 5-2 Nick, and he's never really been able to get that back, has he?
No. No.
Against someone that is as composed and...
You felt he had a sniff at 9-7, but he's broke dry.
Yeah, he broke dry, and it wasn't for lack of hitting him bad, you know. So look, if you hit the break bad, you know, I'm sure Scott's the first person to sit there and go, I hit that one bad, but I don't think any of them have hit a bad break in this match. And if you hit one bad and don't make a ball, then you don't deserve it. But if you hit them good and you don't make one, you do feel a little bit hard done by. Is he on it? I think he is. Could do with Harrison playing here, then we'd know. He didn't. No, he hasn't flinched, so he's on it. He's on it. And they've played, you know, this is the 18th frame, and you got to say that Mark Boyle hasn't really made a mistake. One, maybe two, if you're being ultra critical, but he hasn't certainly made any glaring mistake, and he doesn't really look like he's going to make a glaring mistake either, because, and this is perfect, he's screwed down to land with an angle just to play the little stun, and he doesn't need to play it hard, just flick the red away. And to be completely honest, it's just been a masterclass in cue ball control, Nick.
Scott, I've just been looking on, knowing that there's only going to be a miracle, some kind of horrible kick or some act of God that's going to get him back to this table.
No, this is over, and Scott has had an unbelievable run in this series. Obviously, last year he was unbelievable. He had an unbelievable year, not only at this series but in all the other events that he won. But he just really hasn't had the chances. He got off to a little bit of a bad start, not a bad start in the sense of he missed balls, but he couldn't make balls from the break, and he ended up 3 frames behind pretty early, and he hasn't been able to get those 3 frames back just due to the brilliance of Mark Boyle's cue ball control and breaking. Scott Gillespie have done this to a lot of players, and when it happens to you and there's not too much you can do, you have to just stand up, shake the guy's hand and say, well done, and there's not much I could do about that. And there's no doubt that Scott Gillespie, he is a true gent, and he will definitely say that. As you can see there, Boyle's angles that he leaves on the balls means that not only does he not miss the balls, it means that he can get so close to the next ball because the angle's always perfect. So he doesn't have to worry about trying to manipulate the cue ball. He just has to worry about the distance control.
Yeah. Really has been a masterclass at times by Mark Boyle. He's going to take the win, and he gets one back. 11-7 against Scott Gillespie. And Scott, another very good deep run, another great performance by him this weekend. But we bid farewell to him as he travels back up the M6, and Mark Boyle romps on into the last 8. He's back in action tomorrow morning. I can tell you that he will be playing Declan Brennan, so that's another great game lined up. That will be, as I mentioned, tomorrow morning. I'm not 11 a.m. 11 a.m. we start things going. So we're going to catch Mark in the interview room. But for now, thanks very much, Gaz. It's 11:30 already. Blimey, where did that go?
To the bar it is then.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, absolutely. We'll catch a few words with Mark Boyle, and we'll see you again tomorrow, Gaz. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And for you, we'll say good night from the commentary box. As I say, we'll see you over in the interview room in just a few moments. Good night for now. Gives me great pleasure to welcome Mark Boyle into the interview room. Mark,
Cheers, Nick.
you and Scott, old adversaries. You've met many times before. In fact, you only played last weekend on the IPA, didn't you? You met last year in the semi-final of one of these events,
Yeah.
and it's nice to get that win under the belt, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, to beat Scott, you've got to play really well because he just doesn't make any mistakes. So you're up against it right away. So it's always tough playing one of your fellow countrymen and your mates. So it's always going to be a tough game.
Yeah. Oh, you've got to be happy with that performance. I mean, I've watched you play many times and I've seen some great performances, but that's got to be up amongst them. That was almost flawless.
It's crazy because like the past few weeks I've been struggling. I feel like I've been queuing across the right and that, and to play like that, I think it's more down to focus than anything. You just focus that wee bit harder.
Yeah.
Because this week, today and yesterday, I played well apart from one match, and I feel like it's just more my focus. It's helping that I'm trying to concentrate and queuing straight. Where I think over the course of time I've got lazy. You just end up throwing your cue at stuff. But over the moon to get through and play to beat Scott like that.
Yeah.
Because to beat him, you've got to play like that because
yeah.
He's definitely the man in form down here.
Yeah. You look like you're enjoying the game at the moment as well.
Do you think so? I feel like sometimes I want to. I had a brain fart in the second last frame there, where I thought to myself, that's a clever wee shot. I can open up all the balls and then that's me on my way. that's me on the hill. But
You're not the only person to fall foul of that over this weekend. Just touching on the rules, I mean, we've talked about them loads over the weekend on commentary. Players don't seem to have them ingrained in their psyche. I mean, there was one point earlier on, and I don't expect you to remember it for a second, but Scott had a yellow over the pocket. You played a pot at the top of the table, came around, you had a line of 3 reds, and the shot, I mean, myself and Gaz both called it, would have been to play the red on top of the yellow, pop the yellow,
right.
leave it over the pocket, and you could have snookered in
Yeah.
behind the other balls. And then you went for I think you just dropped the ball to the side of it. Still played a kind of safety shot, but players just don't seem to be naturally seeing it because it's not in your psyche, is it?
No,
yet?
no, it's like a computer program. It's just totally against what you naturally think. Because I've only played black ball rules when I've played pool, and then whenever I go to world rules, I forgot to nominate a couple of times, and then well, that's, to be fair, you don't notice the shots, but that was the first major mistake I made, like playing the yellows onto the reds, But I think it's obviously the more you play them, the more you'll get used to them. Yeah. But hopefully one day there'll be just one rule set, then we'll not have this problem.
It would be great.
You know?
It would be great.
Yeah.
Everyone under one umbrella.
Yeah, well, you never know. That's a different story, isn't it?
So now just back to the hotel room and chill.
Yeah.
Back on at 11 o'clock tomorrow morning playing Decky Brennan.
Oh, is that who I'm playing? Yeah. He's a great player, Declan. Well, anybody in this last 16 here is going to be on form, so you've just got to keep playing well.
Yeah. Mark, as always, an absolute pleasure to speak to you. Lovely to see you as always.
You too.
Best of luck for the rest of the tournament.
Cheers, big man. Thank
you. Obviously, we don't know who's going to be on stream yet tomorrow morning. They might even put up a poll overnight so you get to vote on it. But we will be back with the action at 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. Don't miss out on it. We're down to the last 8. It's heating up now.